So welcome back, and we are going to continue our tales from Mid-1970s Yes. And we're going to start today with 1974's Relayer. So we just finished Tales from Topographic Oceans, a massive double album that charted all of the Indian Shastric scriptures. Rick had had enough, and he left to be replaced by the Swiss fusion keyboardist Patrick Moraz, who would in fact spend 2.5 years with them, giving a unique flavor to this kind of era of Yes. So the album itself is structured the same as Close to the Edge, with a 20-minute song, which we will discuss today, and 2 10-minute songs, Sound Chaser, A Jazz Freakout, and To Be Over, which incidentally is my 5th favorite Yes song. But we start with Gates of Delirium. So Gates of Delirium was apparently a solo piano composition by John based on War and Peace. So it is an anti-war song. It ends with Soon, a pensive ballad. And this album is another Frankenstein album where they stitched together pieces that were then learned and recorded. So Ryan, in the past, I have actually heard you defend Gates of Delirium stridently. Stridently. I saw you literally on a soapbox outside on the corner of your street. Yeah, talk to me about why Gates of Delirium does it for you.
Well, the crowd of 2 that would have amassed listening to me ramble on. It's funny that I have been marked as a strident defender because I listened to it afterwards, 10 years after I really loved the song. I think I need to stop because it ages more poorly every time I go back to it.
Okay.
But the reason I think this song still works, though, this actually does feel like a return to form.
Yes.
As far as doing something with a bit of, I don't want to say an edge to it because that's such a tired way of describing it, but it's not just a puree. It's
yeah.
I think, Ian, you've described these songs as mashed potato-y, but at least this song's got some lumps in it.
Yeah.
But that's how I like it. Some lumps and some of the potato skin blended in there. There's something to chew on as opposed to it just being a pure prog slurry. Yeah. And I think that's why it works.
Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. This is probably also my favorite of the 3 20-minute plus songs we'll be talking about today. It's definitely a journey, this entire song. I will disagree. I don't know what this song is about still. I get the theme of a battle does come across. And that last slow section is some of the most beautiful moments I think Yes ever achieves. It is nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely a different tone that he usually takes. His sort of he does actually sound kind of enthused or a man with an opinion.
Burning passions.
Yeah.
I think as well, I think this song is a very straightforward song.
Very much so.
I think it's a song, it's about something.
Yes.
It might be the only Yes song that's just about something, and he says, hey, by the way, it's about something.
Because John typically did say, like, oh no, a lot of times, like, I came up with the meanings after I came up with the words.
No, exactly.
And that's what they meant to me. And he's been very tolerant of, and this is, if it means that to you, great. Yeah. But this one's like, that's about War and Peace.
War and Peace, and I think it is one of the best anti-war songs, frankly, that at least, that we're going to touch on this podcast, since Us and Them. And I can hear anger in John's voice, which I think really propels the song forward. Or emotionally. I think this propels the song emotionally.
Yeah, that angry chord, that's part of what I enjoy about it the most, though. It's like, oh, you tell him, John.
Yeah, no, and I again, as you said previously, the earnestness really carries the day here.
Because once again, he buries it in some interesting kind of little word salad choices, but the meaning is very, very clear. Although, do you think he actually read War and Peace cover to cover?
I actually do. I don't know. So because of how his mouth ended up, I don't know what his ears were like.
Wait, what?
No, because of the okay. Because of how his spoken word, his lyricism came out.
Okay.
I'm not sure what he heard or what. Oh, I guess he wasn't listening to these books. He was reading them. I don't know what his eyes were doing. There we go. Because there are actually other books that he has cited before. So I actually do think he probably read a lot. And then I also think, honestly, in the 70s, you're on a tour bus. You're reading.
True. That's a good point.
I mean, unless you were literally just like staring at the wall, I hope to God you're reading, because there's not like portable movies. I don't even know if there's portable sound systems, so you're reading.
Yeah. And some musicians, they would take that time to write as well, right? You could sit there and doodle away at the guitar or what have you while you're sitting on the bus. But yeah, you raise a good point. Life on the road does mean you have a lot of spare time, and to consume something as voluminous as that, that's entirely possible.
And then chew it up, spit out a 20-minute song, bada bing, bada boom. Like, nice and easy.
I'm, name me an English rock band that doesn't have an anti-war song between the 60s and the 80s. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was bound to happen at some point.
Yeah, I just say this to me is one of the best. Like, I actually think this captures, because, I don't like political music that much. And so I actually think this captures the emotion of war. And it's weird to say almost maybe the horror of war in a, obviously, keyboard jazz fueled nightmare. But I think there's this, I can't put my finger on it, and I think it's maybe because he uses short emotive bursts of like lyrics. There is something that he captures the emotion of war, and that it takes everything. Like, I think that maybe that's the point he's making, is that it is confusion and chaos and horribleness.
Yeah, I can definitely feel or hear those themes. You kind of get like the screaming guitar, like panned hard right, hard left, and stuff like that. It just kind of, you can imagine it being a bomb going off or something. It's that sort of. They're treading that sort of energy. They are really treading this kind of thin, chaotic line, aren't they, with the song?
Which leads very beautifully into the psychedelic middle part, which is quote unquote the battle, and then the sounds.
Well, Ian, you know the delightful story of the Foley artist fun that John and Steve had at this point, right?
Hit me.
So apparently, and this makes sense because Steve is a car guy, right? He's always enjoyed his fun automobiles. Supposedly, they got a large pile of parts from the junkyard, the big heavy metal parts of the chassis and whatnot, and they made a big stack of them and they pushed it all over and got that on record.
Oh. Which makes sense, as you can hear the crashingness. Like, it sounds clamorous, which is good. So, yeah. Delightful.
The effect is complete, and you're like...
The effect is complete.
I think I did hear that... I did hear an Austin Princess go down.
It's for the audiophiles.
Well, my brain blanked out. I was like, okay, what is a really bad, like, mid to late 70s British car? Specifically a British car, too. Like, the worst of the worst.
Incredible recall there.
I think it sounds great. I mean, I think they're right. They're still at full power in terms of their, musical fortitude. Nothing's really declined in that sense.
Well, and then we come out of all of that chaos, though, into Soon, a beautiful little prayer for peace.
Strange fact of this album: Soon was actually the single, which they had to chop up.
Okay.
But it was not a success, which is surprising no one.
So this was packaged with the B-side being a 3-minute edit of Sound Chaser, which we will all spare you from, but it is an acquired taste, a jazz fusion freakout. And that leads me to probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard Brian say. So Brian said, "I wonder if it was shipped to the stores already pre-covered in dust."
Yeah.
I mean, all of this to say, though, joking aside, like, it is ridiculous to clip out Soon, but that 3 minutes is just, wonderful.
Achingly beautiful.
Yep.
And, of course, as a single, to hear that on the radio would have been confusing.
Yeah. You need the rest of the song to build to it. And I think it's like, it's a kind of quiet, painfully quiet song if you're not, it's almost insubstantial if you haven't built to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a great example of John's positivity because it ends the song on a hopeful note, right?
Yep.
He could have left it just this dark picture of conflict and awfulness. And
But this is the and peace part. So
yeah, and he really does. He's very committed to it. And if you read lots of interviews, he's very committed to that idea. And tomorrow can be a better day, guys.
Tee.
John, is that you? Are you here? No, and I think John really believes what he's saying here, and it just works. So if I'm talking about the parts that have aged better, this part of the song ages perfectly.
Yeah. And it's some of Steve's best work as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think, we maybe complain about these, well, maybe I complain about these songs being really long.
Hey, don't bring me into this. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't speak for the other people. That's not fair. But, Ryan's hit a point there. You split these into their individual parts and they're not a real, they are a song, but they're nowhere near as good. It's not a sum of its parts, these songs. They really have to be one to work.
So the notable addition of Relayer is obviously Patrick Moraz on keyboards. I say he brought an exotic jazzy sound that I actually enjoy. It adds a little bit of energy. I think on a personal level, I think it's amazing to have the chutzpah to jump right into Rick's shoes.
It's interesting what you say about, filling his shoes, because obviously, whereas Rick, the best keyboardist of all time, top 3 minimum. So, and mind you, we say that retrospectively, but I do think Patrick Moraz is serviceable, but maybe not memorable. Like, he's not showing off in the same way, but that he doesn't necessarily need to either. You just need a good, competent keyboardist because if you think about this era in particular, as we've kind of talked about, it's very symphonic, right? It's long, big pieces. So I think you can't necessarily have a big breakout solo like you had in earlier Yes. So I think, competent, not memorable.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think, obviously it's hard to put Patrick Moraz into context because I think, yes, we're going probably more jazzy and weird anyways, because I think the whole sound actually does change to a jazzier sound.
I think he's one of those tasty lumps that I was mentioning earlier in the mashed potatoes, right? Because he gets in there with just into jazz. Like, let's do something a little more interesting, guys, because like we talked about on Topographic Oceans, Rick is he is mailing it in. He's not even phoning it in.
Sends little telegram boys.
And Patrick's like, he's coming in with a fresh set of eyes and fresh set of ears, and he's ready to take the world by storm.
Yeah, and I thought he brought a new style. Yeah, I liked it.
He really gives it a go. Yeah.
So how did we feel about the cover? So yes, we are back with another Roger Dean album cover, and this is probably one of the best ones. Unlike the ancient bonsai worlds or mysteries of the last one, it's a stark white cave. I don't know if this means something to me, but it's definitely my favorite Yes cover. Like, I think it's got the little riders in the background. Fun story, it was called Gates of Delirium or something, and then John Anderson saw the little riders and they're like, yeah, Relayer. They're relaying a message. So I don't know what it is, but the stark whiteness is a very striking image.
Maybe my favorite of all time of Yes. I love this cover because it's different enough, as you said. It's a different, we're used to the bright blues and the bright greens, but I love this one. It's just of all the ones, I'll put it this way: if I wanted one album cover framed on my wall in my home, it would be this one.
Yeah, no, I was say almost like John Anderson's lyrics. I feel like Roger Dean is again making word pictures, but with pictures. The one thing I'll say about this, I think, I guess kind of as you're mentioning there, Warrior Monks, War and Peace, fine. And also, like, between Steve's really sharp Fender tone and then Patrick Moraz's, like, kind of light and airy jazz fusion piano, I don't know, there's something about, like, a crystalline stark white cave that does actually match up with this album. So, I don't know. Personal favorite of mine. That's all I got for you.
And there's actually a fair amount of like quotes attributed to both John and Roger as far as how they came up with this. And I think Roger specifically talks about both Lord of the Rings and something else. He's like, yeah, I wondered if it'd be like a cave of warrior monks or something, or where they would be.
Nice.
It's it's kind of nonsensy, but overall, no, I don't, and it doesn't really. I don't think it actually pertains to the music or any of the lyrics either.
Yeah.
Just kind of had some fun with the painting.
We discussed on another podcast about how Yes ranks, across like Rolling Stone polls. So if we think this is one of the best album covers of all time, it's probably like the 758th best album cover of all time. We discussed, I think Steve Howe was 126th on the best guitarist of all time, and both members of Fleetwood Mac were ahead of him. So this has to be towards the 4-digit numbers,
which is a shame. This really is. It's a nice cover. Oh dear. There you go.
This era of Yes, 74, it really does feel like they're on a creative island.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that is an interesting point in so much as I think they were in the heartbeat of prog in 1972, 73. I don't want to say I don't think that they're reacting to anything, but like we'll see a pretty big reaction in Going for the One. I feel like Relayer really is the last gasp of their like raw, crazy prog.
Well, and at least John on his tiny little soapboxes talking about, we absolutely were not trying to do that, and that was the last thing we were interested in.
Yeah. But here we are doing a 20, 10, and 10.
Just a tight 20, a tight 10. And
Shaving it back down. So that was Relayer. Yes would then go on hiatus in 1975, and each member of the band would release a solo album, including John Anderson's 1976 Elias of Sunhillow, which I promise we will discuss someday. But the band reconvened in 1966 and started working in Switzerland on what would become Going for the One. So to get a new sound, they hired new engineers rather than Eddie Offord, and somehow, it's kind of murky how, John and Chris fired Patrick Moraz, and then, again, kind of unclearly, they got Rick Wakeman back, fresh off of his King Arthur album, and they brought him in as a session musician, but then Chris asked him to come back as a full-time member, and there he was, Rick Wakeman, back with Yes. So, we have got, from this album, Wondrous Stories, a 3.5-minute acoustic ballad that was released as a single, and Awaken, the 15-minute closer about refinding one's creative spark. So Going for the One would do very well, going to number 1 in the UK and number 8 in the US, in addition to Wondrous Stories going to number 7 as a single. So it was Yes's highest charting until Owner of a Lonely Heart. I guess I'll start off with, I believe that Going for the One is on many levels going back-ish to form for them. So the album is kind of cleaner with the new mixing engineers. It's got a very clear sound. I would say we have the full sonic color palette back, so there's kind of loose rocking, organ solos, acoustic breakdowns, multi-part jams. It's not as heavy or as planned out in a way as Tales from Topographic Oceans or Relayer. I really do think in this latter part of the 70s, the bands that are still here are kind of loosening up. So I think of Songs from the Woods by Jethro Tull, where they went back to like a folk rock kind of zone. Trick of the Tail and Wuthering Heights from Genesis, which are post-Peter Gabriel Genesis loosening out. Works from ELP, which is ELP just exploding into an ELP supernova of solos and whatnot. And Animals, which is the loosest Pink Floyd will ever be, which I guess is saying a lot about the psychology of Pink Floyd. But anyways, I feel like this latter part of the 70s, everyone actually is kind of loosening up, and I think this album is in that form as well. However, with the exception of Wondrous Stories and Awaken, I do think this album lacks a certain magic, but I don't know what that is.
I would agree this is a bit of a back to form for the group. And is it too simple to say that it's because of Rick Wakeman? Or is there other other elements, like the disappointments from the previous two albums that led us here?
I don't think it's too simplistic to say that to get Rick Wakeman back kind of aided that loosening. I think probably the biggest one is that they had all just taken a year off to do their solo albums. So I bet they were all feeling kind of loose and limber. And I also think they probably must have stopped touring for about a year. And then also they're in, Montreux or Geneva, I forget what, but they're in Switzerland. They're on an idyllic continental holiday. But even I admit that I think this album lacks a little bit of magic. I just think it's kind of fun. You called it corporate rock back in the day.
I did?
Yeah. But I couldn't think of what exact... I know what you're talking about because it's very clean.
Well, I think I might have meant that more in the production sound, though, because we are leaving this very warm analog, 70s FM hits kind of production, which is, I think regarded as a high point in music production as far as how close to a performance it can sound. Yeah. And this is going into the super slick, just ice cold, sterile production of the 80s.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but we're heading that direction.
Yeah, you can hear that they're clean.
Yeah.
So we start with Wondrous Stories, which is just a simple song about a beautiful day. It was released as a single, as I said, and would go to number 7. So I have two main feelings about the song. I guess the first is it is unusual in Yes's catalog, and it harkens back to Your Move from the Yes album. So it's got complete sentences. It's got a chilled out vibe.
Yes.
Kind of light on the drums, but with just beautiful instrumentation all over the place.
This was definitely the surprises of re-listening all these albums, because I quite enjoyed this song. And I don't know why it's not on my regular rotation. Will it be afterward? I don't know. No commitments. I'm not going to promise anything, but it's quite good.
It is, yeah. I was going to say, I would be sympathetic to someone saying this didn't have the sticking power that some of the other Yes songs have, but I think this is one of the most just relaxing, easy to love songs. So I'd understand if you didn't put it on your, eternal playlist, as a deep, heartfelt song, but I think it just goes over nicely. I don't think it's challenging in any way, which is actually quite nice in this context.
No, it is a complete throwback to that era, and I think that's why it works, although I really love the idea of someone calling into the radio station, dude, gotta hear Wondrous Stories before the hour's over. Gotta hear some Wondrous Stories.
Yes, timber.
Which sometimes you do.
Yeah.
There is a greatest hits compilation known as Classic Yes, which I believe actually was curated by the band, not the record company. And it refers to this era that we are talking about here.
Interesting.
And Wondrous Stories makes the cut.
I mean, absolutely. It's a great song. As in, I can't think of, if I just had to put something on a greatest hits album, this is numero uno for me.
But I think it's interesting that they picked it.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I think they all sound like they're having a great time. And, it is weird relative to the rest of their catalog. As I say, the only other song I can really think of is Your Move.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll make one other point, and this is perhaps an underappreciated point about, Yes in general, but I'm going to say specifically John Anderson. I actually think he's got a pretty good lyrical range. And obviously we joke, ha ha ha, he just does a stupid goddamn word salad stuff, and that's fine. But actually, the diversity of song subjects, so we did Revealing Science of God, which, yeah, ha ha ha, but I got the impression that it was actually about, man spitting on God's creation, and Gates of Delirium, totally a great song about war and peace, and we'll be coming up to Awaken, but that's about the life of inspiration and stuff. We've had Sister Bluebird and Heart of the Sunrise and South Side of the Sky, each about various interesting things, roundabouts about roundabouts. And then we have this song, which is just a perfect little prog pop vignette about wondrous stories. Nothing more, nothing less, and it's visual and beautiful.
I have a lot of time for prog pop. I think it skims off some of the prog rock fat that can really get in the way of enjoying a prog song. So I've got a lot of time for prog pop.
I wouldn't defend a song simply because it's 20 minutes. I think there's a there's an art to doing a 20-minute song, and it can go horribly wrong. Obviously, all the songs we talked about on this podcast are, 20-minute songs I have enjoyed in my life.
Yeah.
I think if you have a very beautiful song like this is, dear God, end it at 4 minutes. Also, way back in the day, we talked about I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe, the Genesis song.
Yeah.
Again, they said what they needed to say in 4 minutes.
Well, it brings up an interesting point. Is it a active choice? Them going, that's enough. This is a perfect 4-minute song. We don't need any more. Are they deciding to keep it at 4 minutes, or are they deciding to extend their songs?
I think it's where you are creatively.
Yeah.
When they did Tales from Topographic Oceans, I think they were kind of in a creative space to want to go the full 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I think, by the time we loop around on here, I think, they knew they had a 4-minute song, and they all probably knew it would be insane to spread it out forever. And to Yes's credit, I don't think their dream was ever, again, to just make 20-minute songs to make 20-minute songs. I think they were trying to do something grand with Tales from Topographic Oceans. It just was a lot. I mean, I think, they and Pink Floyd and Genesis, everyone was on the path to making these long songs.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I think, the gamble pays off most of the time.
Yeah.
I think, Thick as a Brick, we haven't talked about it yet, but Supper's Ready, and then obviously Echoes are all fan favorites.
Yeah. I think it's a really well-crafted and pretty song, basically, yeah.
So my hot take about this song, I actually think Wondrous Stories accomplished what Tales from Topographic Oceans could have accomplished in 4 minutes. Because I think it's some of everyone's best work, and the harmonies are great, but it's mystical. It's still mystical. It feels whatever, but the lyrics are so sensible.
You cut 4 LP sides into 4 minutes.
No, and I actually feel like it's like a speed run of Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Ooh. Yeah, speedrun's a good metaphor there, because otherwise listening to Tales from Topographic Oceans all the way through is like watching someone play an RPG
At regular speed.
at regular speed, and you have to watch every fight they have with a blob of slime and something else.
So, we are going to end our tour of Mid-70s Yes with the album closer for this album, Awaken. So I'll admit, side 1 of Going for the One is kind of a chilly, less fun album, even than Relayer, and I'm not even sure why, but personally, I love Awaken, and I think it captures a certain Yes magic. So the subject matter is very simple, reawakening to a life of inspiration, which is what they were up to in the lakes and mountains of Switzerland. I even read a lot of, again, through his John Gobbledygook, there's lots of lines in this that are actually really powerful. So like the time I ran away, turned around, and you were standing close to me. And I actually take that to be his inspiration. It's come back.
Well, I mean, it makes sense that, hey, Rick's back. Maybe we can get back some of that mojo we had there.
Yeah.
And it's, oh boy.
Oh, this is interesting. We've got a steamed Ryan. Okay, we'll come to you in a second then.
I can hear it in terms of production style.
Okay, interesting.
I think their initial choices with how, the very big space lyrics, etc. When you add a lot of reverb, a lot of echo like this, it always introduces a feeling of not only space, right, which is it's the most important aspect of reverb and delay and echo and stuff like that, but also it brings in this kind of airy feeling of expectation, and so you can link that quite a lot to that theme, I think.
Okay, that's interesting.
In the first 2 minutes, I'm really talking here. Just
the ethereal
vocals leading into the band coming in together. Right.
Yeah.
To me, sonically, basically, I was going to say personified, but that doesn't really make sense. It exemplifies that very point of them kind of
reawakening to a life of inspiration.
Think about any piece of film that you've seen where, say, the main character's knocked out, or they're in a fugue state. Right. It's always airy and fairy because they're out of it. And then slowly they get sucked back in as the space closes and closes and closes, as the reverb and the echo gets shorter and shorter, and they're sucked back in and they're back in the present, right? And it's
real life.
And it's the same, I think, with the beginning of this song.
That's very interesting. Okay.
So I mean, and I think the lyrics are part of that, right? They are hand in hand with this production choice.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I guess that links rather beautifully to the musicality, the structure of Awaken. So it starts with, a nice Rick piano intro, beautiful. And then we kind of enter the cosmic stardust, high vibrations, John's floating in space, and then we come in with the riff. And we'll get to this in a second, but I think this might be some of the best 5 minutes Yes ever put together. But it's got John chanting about stardust, Alan and Chris and Steve just tearing up a really rhythmic, powerful driving thing.
Steve's got a tasty kind of Eastern-style riff going.
Yep, it's great. It's wonderful. And I think that 11/4 riff, so it's an uneven riff, gives it this beautiful propulsion. Then hard shift to a kind of floating through space bit, which I might even admit that might go on a little too long. Then we have Rick Wakeman bringing it with an actual church organ that he played live, and a live choir that he directed himself. And then we end on the cosmic fade out with John. Like the time I ran away, turned around and you were standing close to me. Again, these kind of two cosmic bookends are just filled with the most reverby vocals I've ever heard. But I'm laying down the gauntlet on you guys. You've all given other answers at other points for your favorite pieces of Yes. And I ask again, why not these first 5 minutes?
Because...
Okay.
What?
I go.
Maybe I'm a completist and I feel like you're not allowed to hit the stop button.
Okay, no, that's genuinely a fair response. No, I think there is a point where it's like stuff can just weigh it down. Like it can be the a long organ jam could be an anchor that sinks the ship.
Because unlike sitting down and listening to Revealing Science of God, where it's not offensive, and I think I said earlier, I was like, oh, you guys are still here.
Yeah.
This one, you get through the first 5 minutes, well, kind of like checking your watch during a movie. I look down, again, I'm doing laundry at this point, and I'm like, oh no, there's 10 more minutes of, oh no.
Okay.
Like,
Yep.
where are they going to go from here?
Yeah. Actually, that's something I might give you. I actually think maybe they top-loaded this song.
Oof.
Because I think that Cosmic Stardust part and the 11/4 first 5 minute, boom.
That is pretty great. Yeah.
I think it's almost as good as it Yes ever got. Anyways, Gauntlet's down.
Yeah. I think you got a strong point there. I don't know. Maybe I was too quick to judge it. For my silly ears, my silly tastes.
Your weak ears.
One of my weak ears. Once I've gotten through 2 or 3 20-minute songs, another one, I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you need to train.
I need to train that shit.
Life is a marathon, not a sprint, my friend.
Yeah, this is true.
We can't all have wondrous stories.
When you hear the jamming by Steve Howe, I think what's interesting is if you look at when he was winning, I think he won Best Guitarist of the Year 3 times in a row, but it's this era of Yes. It's not the earlier stuff. So he's still jamming pretty hard. And I think even for Yes fans, there might be some forgotten, rockabilly moments that are worth re-listening to.
Yeah. Yeah, his solo in the riff part. Yep. Yeah, absolutely outrageous. And then, funnily enough, he fades with a little diddly diddly doo as the song is floating out, and that's one of those just that licks that make the song. So someone fell out with Roger Dean. I'm not exactly sure who, but they went with Hypnosis, the famed album cover designers, for this cover. And as we can all see, it is a nude man looking out at the stark modernist Century Plaza in Los Angeles. That's a big old boo for me.
A boo?
A boo. This is a boo. It's not. Any other thoughts about this album cover?
I don't want to immediately hate something because it's different or it's a different direction, but I hate it.
Yeah.
And obviously they got the creme de la creme of prog rock covers, but it's just not what I want.
I was going to say, I don't actually know what I could have seen on this cover. I don't know if it had to be a photograph. I don't know if it had to be Brain Salad Surgery, a really stark kind of aggressive painting. I don't know what need from this album cover, but I think just a picture of a naked guy looking at some buildings wasn't it. And I think, I'm not really sure how much this ties in with the music in any way. And I feel like being that both Wondrous Stories and Awaken, for me, are the centerpieces of this album, I feel like some sort of guy having some spiritual awakening, not just wandering naked through LA. I feel like would have accentuated maybe some of the themes of this album. Of interest, apparently those random lines that you see on the album are, I'm going to make this up, but some sort of like chakra lines, some sort of something or other.
Oh.
Obviously.
You could have told me anything and I would have believed you.
But again, I didn't even notice the lines. So, again, had those been highlighted, we're like, oh, it's a naked guy, but he's also experiencing his own chakra. Maybe that would have added something to it, but...
Let's turn to Bobby Kreisgau now. And for Going for the One, he has to say, the title track may be their best ever, challenging a form that even apologists are apologizing for now by cutting hard rock guitar into lyrics in which John Anderson casts aspersions upon his own cosmic mind. But even there, you wish you could erase Rick Wakeman, who sticks strictly to organ pomp and intent noodles throughout, and elsewhere Steve Howe has almost little to say. Ooh, I don't agree with that, because he's rocking hard. C is what he gives this one.
Ooh, it's funny because I'd actually give the C for for an entirely other suite of things. Those three things that he brings up are actually not the problems I have with this album. So no, that's a no, Robbie Christgau. I'm sorry.
Didn't get it right, Bob. Sorry.
Well, I will never wish for less Rick, but he makes a good point in that, Steve, as far as being, I think we've talked about this during other Yes episodes. Like, I think Brian was the one who brought up how underrated Steve Howe actually is. I think Brian was looking at the Rolling Stone list of greatest guitarists of all time, and Steve's down at the bottom of the list. Someone as unbelievable as he is and what he's able to play. Yeah, this album, he has almost nothing to say. Yeah, I will agree there.
So that has been Mid-70s Yes. I guess I've got two final wrap-up points, and then I'll come to you guys. So this album obviously asks one very, very simple question. When are long songs allowed? So I love long songs. They are great because when they're done well, I love the fact that you can take these taster bits that wouldn't normally be in normal songs, but you can string them together and they obviously become bigger than the sum of their parts. I love the breathing space that long songs provide you, and definitely not to do endless jamming, but maybe some scene setting or some exploring different versions of a musical idea. And thus the payoff at the end, because you in a sense have worked for it, is just great. But you have to have clear dynamics, so no noodling. Any thoughts about when are long songs allowed?
I think a long song puts a target on your back. Because obviously even the best band has bad or not memorable songs like the Beatles. But you don't, if it's a 2-3 minute song, you just forget it exists and moves on. But a bad 20-minute song, it's glaring and it feeds the reputation of opulence and decadence of prog rock that they're just droning on and on and on, and they think they're so self-important. But we've seen the highs of the 20-minute song from Yes. And at least in this era, there's not any true stinkers. But it's just coming from close to the edge. It's so hard to hit that high again.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you. This is definitely, if you're doing the long song, like you're taking the penalty shot in the World Cup, people do remember like, oh yeah, you swung and you missed. In public.
I have a similar feeling that you do. As long as there's no noodling, long songs can be incredible.
Yep.
Funny thing is, I can't define noodling exactly, but I know it when I hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when it works, I mean, not to just glow over close to the edge and just fawn over it and then just dunk on this era. But yeah, what you're describing there, where you get just enough space to make sure every idea gets explored and you have your fun with it before. I guess it's like a good. God, I'm all about the food. I'm not even hungry, but you eat just enough, but you stop.
Yeah.
You don't gorge yourself to the point of
sickness.
Exactly.
Prog fever.
It's a good long song is like a good 9-course meal.
Yeah. You get a bit of everything in the right amounts.
Exactly. But if you only got one of those courses, you'd also be like, "Oh, that's it."
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
All together, you've got a winning evening.
A full tasting menu. Yeah. Nice.
I mean, I agree generally with what you were saying about how it enables breathing space and setting scenes and stuff. And I think the best long songs are, for me personally, where they take you to a world and then the song is kind of explored and based in that world. That's fantastic for me.
Yep.
Endless jamming and endless noodling can fuck off, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just...
And I was going to say, I think to defend everyone we've talked about thus far on this podcast, I don't think any of the long songs have been the endless jamming variety.
I mean, ELP did it a bit, in my opinion, but there was...
This is true, but then that was just their normal songs. That's not even their long songs.
Yeah.
So my final thought, I guess, is the legacy of prog rock. And this album really calls it the most into question because, yes, we're probably the most successful of the pure prog. So I understand why the legend of prog rock is emotionally true, even for its fans, because this era is a interesting mess of sounds. But I think that's a retrospective story we put on it. So let's look at the charts real quick. So July 1977, when this came out, Donna Summer's I Feel Love, topping the charts. Great. Boney M, Hot Chocolate, kind of classic, groovy, funky disco, coming in at 2 and 5. 6 was the Sex Pistols, but number 3 was ELP's Fanfare for the Common Man. And Going for the One topped the charts this week at number 1. Also, fast forwarding to October 1977, number 1 through 6 were just some random songs, including a recently deceased Elvis's song. Number 1 through 6 were just some random songs I've never heard of. But number 7 was Wondrous Stories. So, I guess to rewind, I've lumped together 4 years of music, but what actually happened is Brain Salad Surgery and Tales from Topographic Oceans were squarely in that kind of prog supernova, along with Foxtrot, which we'll talk about someday, but Selling England by the Pound, King Crimson's Red next week, Thick as a Brick, and Dark Side of the Moon. And, of note, Tales did better than all of those, except for Dark Side. Admittedly, Relayer is a little bit like Leaving Eden, and it's a little bit out there, but Yes are still doing okay. The tours are still selling. And Going for the One is a reasonable artistic and commercial evolution into the late 70s. So I think we retrospectively put the kind of like, they shot themselves in the foot story on it. And I think another thing that happened is the 70s, late 70s, were dark. And people were either discoing or punking. And Yes are this little hippy-dippy 60s ray of light. And I think that perceived mismatch is actually the true legend of prog.
Yeah.
I think, Animals is theoretically a similar album, kind of musically ridiculous and kind of bloated concept. But I think it captures the grumpiness, obviously, of Pink Floyd, but also of the times. So I think it goes down as congruent, whereas I think Yes were too fun. And then also, I'll admit this isn't radio music, so it hasn't been passed down through the ages.
Yeah, they want something else.
So I don't think that prog really went over a cliff. I think it's the natural churn of young and hip music.
Yeah. It's like new metal, isn't it?
Like new metal. Exactly. Eternally young and hip. So... Oh, dear.
Oh, fuck. Sorry.
So I guess one final point about all of that is a 16 to 24-year-old in 1972, so the height of prog, is obviously 5 years older in Going for the One 1977. And, there's a new crop of kids. So there's going to be a new popular music. I don't think prog really messed up that badly. It's probably just more the natural churn of quote-unquote young and hip music. My other little pet theory is that music gets handed down by people engaging with it, i.e. actually playing with it. And I think you can do that with the Beatles. You can do that with Pink Floyd and Green Day and Blink-182. I think it's just really hard to cover Yes in like a garage band. So.
Well, yeah, no. I see the big thoughts there, and I just, yes, it's not, is it?
Any other final thoughts about this era?
It's valuable to re-listen to, but I truly question if this enters my regular rotation, and I don't have a better explanation for that. However, I do encourage you, if you are one of our listeners that's not familiar, give it through. Put it on Spotify. Check it out.
Yep.
It's like remembering Orson Welles did the Magnificent Ambersons.
Okay, go on.
Well, it's right after Citizen Kane. It's before he kind of just fell to just doing cheesy TV commercials, and it's not as good as Citizen Kane, but it's a really interesting thing to revisit.
Okay, excellent. So it's a secret little fun zone from a master craftsman.
Yes.
Brian's metaphor works pretty well, actually, because like that, right? You're like, oh, this has got, lots of all these flavors that I like and everything else. But even to the author, the reason it's still sitting in the drawer is like, well, I wasn't really quite done with it. It never really took the form I wanted it to.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ready to put it out there into the world.
Yeah.
That author was trying for something, and they just were frustrated. And,
well, they were going for the one.
Hey!
Manja.
Well, I think one of the major benefits of the adventure we've been on is it just highlights the variety of songs that they have within their catalogue. Yeah, I think it's interesting because it really highlights what I think are the two different sides of Yes. You have these pop prog songs like we've had with Wondrous Stories, and then you have these longer, more intricate, more interesting, more complicated 20-minute to 15-minute songs like Gates of Delirium. I think Yes aren't a one-trick pony in many ways, and were quite amazingly capable of creating songs that were able to get onto the charts, like Wondrous Stories again, but then also these more detail-orientated songs for you to go on a journey with, basically.
And it means that you can keep coming back to it, I guess.
Yeah, there's
more to discover.
There's little golden nuggets wherever you look, basically.
Wherever you look.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, if any of these songs have piqued your interest, and I can see Brian is piqued. If any of these songs have piqued your interest, I guess my further recommendations from this era. So To Be Over, number 1. I love it. Ritual and The Remembering from Tales from Topographic Oceans, and Turn of the Century from Going for the One. I feel like those are some natural next places to go. Maybe, if you're feeling brave, the album Drama, 1980. They are all reasonable things.
That's brave.
It's brave, but if you've enjoyed any of this. So here we go. Fabulous. So that has been a sort of young person's guide to prog rock. I have been your host, Ian Prize, and I want to thank my guests, Brian,
Thank you,
Ryan, and Rufus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. So do find us over on Instagram at ProgFrogPod. Do rate us wherever you're listening to us. And if you have any longer thoughts, queries, or questions, that is helloprogfrog@gmail.com. So we leave Yes there for now, 1977. They will try again with the same band to do Tormato in 1978, but then John and Rick leave the band. So the other three guys recruit the Buggles, hot off their hit single Video Killed the Radio Star for 1980's Drama. Then Yes fracture completely in 1981 until 1983 when they were revived under the stewardship of Trevor Rabin for their biggest hit, 90125. So we'll pick back up with them in a few weeks there. But next week we go back in time to 1972, where a mad scientist by the name of Robert Fripp has discovered a new metalloid, Jasmium. So join us next time where we return to a newly reformed King Crimson for their mid-70s renaissance.